Wings of Fire. The Dragonet Prophecy. Chapter 9. Clay had flown before, shot hops around the caves, dodging stalactites and flapping in circles, but that was nothing compared to this. Everything was so big. The sky was everywhere. It went on and on and on, like nothing could ever fill it up. It was night, but the light of the 3 moons was dazzling after a lifetime of caves and spluttering torches. Craggy mountain peaks bit into the sky all around him. In the distance, he thought he saw a glimmer of sea and the stars. Clay had thought he knew stars from gazing out at the sky hole. He'd known how many there were, or how they looked like silver nets cast across the dark. It felt like he could keep flying up and up forever, all the way to the moons. He wondered if any dragon had ever tried to do that. This was what we'd been missing all this time. Even the sharp lines of pain between his scales couldn't take away his excitement. "Can you believe this?" he called, spinning in the air. "Tsunami, isn't it amazing?" There was no answer. Clay lashed his tail to stop spinning and hovered. His eyes darted around the sky. He couldn't see Tsunami anywhere. She wouldn't have flown off without him, would she? Maybe she saw the glimmer of faraway sea. Maybe she saw her home and couldn't resist. He knew she wouldn't abandon her friends, but he also knew how desperately she wanted to return to the ocean. He glanced towards the horizon and spotted her, far below him, flapping in a frantic downward spiral. Something was wrong. It looked like only one of her wings were working. Clay twisted into a dive and barreled into her. She tucked his wings close to his body, fighting back the terror as he plummeted. Wind whistled in his face. Wind! He'd imagined it all wrong. It was like a living thing, grabbing his tail to throw him off balance, whisking his eyes to blind him, flaring under his wings to slow him down. It seemed to dig icicle-sharp claws into his skin, slicing under his scales. The waterfall and the cliff shot fast at lightning speed. Was he falling too fast? The ground hurtled towards him. Shadows and moonlight mixed in shapes he'd never seen and couldn't understand. He had no idea how far away it was or how soon he would reach it. He never dealt with the distance like this before. Would he be able to stop? Would it hurt when he did? But he could see Tsunami below him, still struggling. So he knew that she hadn't hit the bottom yet. And that made him braver. And he fell and fell and fell, and she got closer and closer until Clay Clay passed her and instinctively flared his wings open. His body slammed upright like he's run into the wall, and then a moment later, he was whammed again, this time by a heavy ceiling landing on him from above. He tumbled, nearly losing Tsunami over his head, but they caught each other with their talons and held tight. With her claws wrapped fiercely around his neck, Clay battled to stay aloft, beating his wings in wide arcs. He wasn't strong enough to lift her, but at least he could slow her fall. Tsunami let out a yelp, and then Clay felt something like claws sang into his tail. They lost on hold of each other, and as they fell through the trees, smashing branches and ripping off leaves, before they thundered to earth. It took Clay a moment before he could breathe again. Tsunami's tail flopped across his snout. He pushed it aside and sat up, creaking with pain. Tsunami rolled over onto her back, letting her wings flop out either side. Close up, Clay could see that he was right. One of her outer blue wings was crooked, as if it had been wrenched out of her shoulder. Clay touched it with one claw and they both winced. What happened? Clay asked. Getting out of the chains, Tsunami said. I think I dislocated it. And you came after me anyway? Clay said, appalled. Why didn't you tell me you were hurt? He struggled and winced again. It didn't hurt very much in the river, but once I tried to fly... Dirt! Clay yelled suddenly. I'm standing on dirt! He grabbed his claws around it, and he sank right into the earth. And the thrill ran through him from snout to tail. Tsunami looked up at him. Yay? She said. It's amazing! He cried. Feel how soft it is! He seized a handful of dirt and flung it at her. Hey, quit that! She protested, defending herself with her good wing. Clay flattened himself to the grass, feeling the warm earth scrabble around his wings and climb up against his scales. Scents of green and brown berry sunshine overwhelmed him. It was nothing like the hard, cold, bare rocks under the mountains. The ground here was so welcoming and full of life. A warm burrow next to his passed his nose, and then he snapped it up. Well, now we're even. Tsunami said. I saved you, you saved... I hear the river! Clay cried. jumping up and snaking himself as Tsunami ducked the shower of dirt, and then that flew off him. River plus dirt means mud. He spun around and raced towards the trees. The sound of bubbling water. Tsunami found him rolling blissfully in the mud banks of the river. I don't think most dragons will get this excited about being dirty, she said, wiry. I bet my kind do, Clay said, ignoring her sarcasm. I've never been this warm my whole life. For the first time ever, his clothes didn't ache. His scales didn't itch. His wings didn't feel too dry. And he wasn't worried about scrabbling his talons every other step. He felt like mud squelched into gaps between his scales, and realized that the pain from the cave poison was fading, as if the mud was healing him. He sighed happily, squishing himself farther down the damp riverbank. Well, she stuck out her front talons in the river, and we're not even at Mudwing Swamp yet. I wonder if I'll be that excited when I get to the sea. You will, Clay said, suddenly feeling certain and brave and confident. And when you can fly, can we fix your wing? He tilted his head, studying her injury. The waterfall poured down a cliff towards them, with even higher mountains below. The 3 moons were low in the sky. Clay guessed it would be morning soon, and then they could look for the smoke signal that would lead to their friends. But Tsunami couldn't fly. She would be stuck down here, easy picks for any hostile dragons flying by. Clyde glanced up at the sky, remembering that they'd popped out of into the world of war. It seems so peaceful here. From the way the big dragons talked, he'd imagined the entire world as a giant battlefield. It was strange to be a quiet clearing. No sound of war or even other dragons anywhere nearby. But he knew that the talons of peace, and by existence the dragonets, had enemies everywhere. The 3 Sandwing Queens distrusted the prophecy and would kill anyone who got in their way. And there was a whole list of dragons who might do terrible things to the Dragoness of Destiny if they ever found them. Tsunami twisted and looked around at her dislocated wing. I'm sure I can fix it. I saw this skull once. It just needed to be banged back into place. Maybe I can run myself into a tree. He glanced around the forest and suddenly charged to the nearest solid tree trunk. Clay leaped out of the mud and pounced on his tail, yanking her back before she crashed. "Ow!" Tsunami stormed. "Get off! I can fix it." This will work." She snapped her teeth at him. "Stop being a grumpy Skyring. Smashing yourself into a tree is a terrible plan," Clay said. "Can I look at it?" Tsunami settled back down on the grass, grabbed the tail, Tsunami settled back into the grass, struggling, grumbling. With her wings spread out, he circled her and then stood back and looked at the uneven lines of wings and shoulders. "If you can stay still," he said, "I think I can shove it back into place." "Is that a good idea?" Tsunami asked, lunging away from him. "Better than running into a tree," he pointed out. Dig your claws in and brace yourself." Tsunami clutched the ground and closed her eyes. Clay felt gently along her shoulders in front of his talons. It was easy to find the spot where the bone had slipped out its socket. He touched it lightly until he was sure where it was and where it needed to be. Then he grabbed and shoved the bone back into place in one quick, strong movement. "Ow!" Tsunami roared, reaching back. Her powerful tail whipped around and slammed Clay into a thicket of prickly bushes. I'm sorry," Clay yelped, floundering free. "I really thought that would work." He stopped and Tsunami was turning in circles, flexing and extending both wings. They looked perfectly matched again. "It did work," she said. "It was a little sore, but I can move it now." "Pretty fast, Clay." He helped disentangle his tail from the branches. "I'm sorry I woke you." Clay opened his mouth in response, but Tsunami suddenly seized his snout and held it shut. She raised one talon, her ears twitching. "What's that?" she whispered. Clay tried to swivel his head around, but Tsunami's grab was too tight. He strained his ears to listen. Something had crashed through the forest towards them.